Alien versus Predator. Now that's a cool mashup, and thank goodness Dark Horse Comics had the foresight to think of it. Back in 1989, they were like, oh, we have the license to both Alien and Predator. Let's put them together like peanut butter and chocolate, see what happens. The result was really cool and fun. Now, of course, it led to two pretty subpar films, but we can't blame Dark Horse for that. They had a lot of great comic book ideas exploring these two alien cultures clashing. Then, down the road, they partnered with DC Comics and said, well, what would happen if we started adding superheroes to this mix? And they did a number of books where either Superman or Batman met one of the other characters. Fine, most of those are pretty entertaining. They're all by different creative teams. But at a certain point, there was really nothing left in the tank. 10 years ago, 2007, there was the two-part comic Batman and Superman versus Aliens and Predator. And you know what? It might as well have just been called Superman's Day of Bad Decisions, because it just has no stakes, no tension. Things are just not a problem for either of these two guys because they've both gone up against these monsters several times before. There was nothing left. So they just mashed all four ideas together in one two-part book. We're going to look at it today, but don't get your hopes up for a great issue. I'll just say first of all that it was created by writer Mark Schultz and artist Ariel Olivetti. Mark Schultz is probably still best known for creating Xenozoic tales, so that's his that he writes and draws, and he's got some acclaim there, and he's also written a lot of stuff for both DC and Dark Horse. So it's no surprise that they'd come to him and say, hey, pitch us something. Artist Ariel Olivetti, especially in 2007, he was an up-and-comer. I mean, there's a lot to like about his art. I'm personally not a massive fan, but I also don't dislike it. I think that his people look fantastic. I think that his technique for backgrounds, which is pretty much just digitally manipulating photos a lot of the time, I think that that can look kind of washed out and boring and dull for just me. I think that he could add more detail there. But you know what? That's personal preference, isn't it? I just think it makes it look like characters are sort of moving on a green screen. It's kind of like the first Star Wars prequel. Everybody's just always walking across a green screen. But that's my opinion. Let's dive into the story and take a look at some of Superman's not-so-amazing decisions. The story kicks off in the Andes Mountains, where some hikers are exploring a previously unseen volcano, which they call Viejo Abuelo, and apparently it's still active. That's a surprise for everybody. By the way, look at this odd quote. The universe is not only queerer than we suppose, but queerer than we can suppose. Hey, there's plenty of people that would be very happy to hear that. As the hikers talk to themselves about the history of this amazing volcano, all of a sudden their heads all get cut off. Now this kind of violence is perfectly in keeping with both the Alien and Predator film franchises. I mean, those are hard R movies. Alien in particular, that was a horror movie. That's its roots. That's basically just a haunted house movie that they set in space. Predator has always been an action franchise, but it's also still been an R rating. And so you don't necessarily get surprised at this level of violence. However, those horrific elements feel very out of place, in particular in a Superman story. So this is pretty much the only real violence that we get to see. After this, things start getting pretty tame pretty fast, which means that tonally, if you go back and read this again, this scene almost seems out of place. It's the inciting incident to a degree, but nothing else compares to this level of violence. From there, we cut to Gotham City, where Batman is investigating some criminals in a factory, and he bumps into some predators. They throw some weaponry at him. He's ready for a fight, and he recognizes them, but he gets punched in the back of the head, and they run away. Batman has met the predators before. In fact, he hasn't just met them once, or twice, or 3 times. That's right, this is the 4th time Batman has come across the predators. and they still manage to get the drop on him. We cut to Metropolis, where Superman is investigating a disturbance that he notices under the city. He breaks through the pavement, which, come on, Superman, that seems a little unnecessary to add that kind of a build to the city. Just pick up a manhole cover and get down there. He's in radio contact with his friend John Henry, who's helping him, and he says, "Follow your nose, Blue." Superman says, "Nose is right. It smells hot down here." Nose is right. It smells hot down here. That's not quite a joke, is it? Supposedly this is just a regular power generator that Superman is investigating, but the problem with the readings obviously comes from the fact that 3 more predators are messing around with it. Superman just sort of spooks them. They get scared when they see him and they run away. He doesn't follow the predators. That's your first bad decision, Superman. If you see monsters messing around with the city infrastructure, don't let them run away. Actually go and chase them. How do we know that Superman doesn't chase them? Because in the very next panel, he's at the Daily Planet, just working as Clark Kent. He just gave up on chasing him. Editor Perry White assigns Clark Kent a story of investigating a volcano that's become active in Peru. Clark accurately states, "Seems more like something for the science desk." Perry awkwardly answers, "It would be a science item, except a team of volcanographers, or whatever you call them, disappeared while climbing the cone last week. I want you covering that angle." Perry White has never seemed to be a dumb person to me, so volcanographer is a bit of an odd line out of his mouth. But are newspapers so wealthy in Metropolis that they can fly their star reporter to Peru to investigate some missing climbers? No offense, that doesn't necessarily seem like the biggest story in the world. This is like Clark Kent, who writes about, of course, Superman, all sorts of crime. He, breaks stories on Lex Luthor. He's one of the top reporters at the Daily Planet. And there's just no way in 2007 that a newspaper was so flush with cash that they were like, beat it to Peru, figure out what's going on. That's just insane. On top of that, Lois insists that she wants to go. But Perry says, hey, your beat is the city. I can't afford to send 2 of you. And she's like, no, I'll go for free. I just want to go with my husband, Clark, and we'll consider it a vacation. And then Clark Kent just picks up his assignment and throws it in the air as he turns his back to Perry White. I don't think he's supposed to be disrespectful to Perry, but I don't know exactly what Clark is doing there. Like, yeah, fine, your story. I'll cover it. Don't let Lois tag along, Clark. Every time you do, a monster, an alien, a mobster, a robot, somebody is going to attack Lois. Let her stay safe at home. Don't take her, even if there was no monster. You're going to take her all the way to the Andes Mountains where it's all like snow and an active volcano. Like what is going on here? Also, now that I think of it, would they even really need to go up into the mountains to investigate this? Or would their first stop just be sort of talking to the people that saw them last back in the city? Oh well, let's see what happens. Clark, Lois, and 2 guides get to the volcano, and Clark instantly finds a scrap of fabric that he says he's not sure what it is. When Lois asks what it is, Clark says, "I'm not sure. I'm scanning with microvision, but I don't recognize the fabric." A clue. Based on that scrap of fabric, Clark decides to make a quick change into Superman and investigate further. He instantly comes across a dead soldier. As he investigates more dead soldiers in the volcano, he says, "Dead. They're all beyond help. Where did their attackers go?" "Back to the Earth. Batman's shown up. Such a clumsy, ill-advised waste. This wasn't necessary." Batman explains that the soldiers were killed by predators. And Superman explains that he's met them before. But here's what I want to know. Why is Batman calling them predators? That's what the title of the movie was. But I don't think that it was ever established that that's what everybody calls them. That's what we, the audience, call it. But that's like a fourth wall breaking to call these things predators. I mean, they're just aliens. You could have just called them like the Gluglas or the monster people, crab faces. It's very strange that Batman would choose to call these things predators. Batman explains that the soldiers are from a group called the Terrestrial Defense Initiative, a highly classified function of the League of Prime Nations. Get used to that phrase. The League of Prime Nations apparently is something along the lines of the UN in this comic. And yeah, they've sent soldiers to investigate the active volcano / the aliens. Here's an odd panel. We can understand Batman scaling the mountains to investigate the volcano, but why is Superman slowly crawling down? You can fly. You could just carry both yourself and Batman right down to the base. It's not a big deal. But that's what happens in this. Superman just sort of casually forgets that he has various superpowers. Batman and Superman are instantly attacked, but not by predators. Nope, they're attacked by the xenomorphs from the Alien movies. Batman falls hundreds of feet, but his suit apparently protects him. Superman shouts, "No, not you!" That's because Superman has encountered the aliens before. Twice, actually. So is Batman. That's right, this is the 5th time these guys are meeting aliens. So, it's not too scary at this point. Diminishing returns. Batman fighting the aliens is slightly odd. In panel 1, we see an alien leaping forward. In panel 2, Batman is grabbing its inner mouth. There are, of course, panels that Ariel Olivetti has drawn showing that the aliens have that sort of inner mouth that extends even further. But it's not very clear from panel 1 to panel 2 that that's the same alien. In fact, all we see in panel 2 is Batman's fist grabbing hold of this veiny rod. I don't want to know what reference was used to draw this. Is Batman in trouble? No, the aliens instantly blow up because apparently there's a bunch of predators down there. What about the acid blood in the aliens? Remember in the second movie, Aliens, the Colonial Marines were attacking the aliens trying to get back to their shuttle, and as they shot them with shotguns and stuff, they got splattered with their acidic blood and burned real bad. Just not an issue for Batman. I guess, this is the 3rd time he's gone up against them. He must have invented acid-proof clothing. The Predators escort Batman deep into the volcano, and he meets what might be their leader, but is at least the tallest Predator. Batman walks up to them, arms raised, and he slaps the Predator across the face, and then just stands there to get punched in the face himself. Keep in mind, Batman has gone up against the Predators 3 times before, so he really should know what to expect in this kind of situation. But he's treating it like it's the first time encountering an alien civilization. It's bizarre. Batman has no problem in his fight with the biggest predator, he just electrocutes it. Meanwhile, Superman has no problem fighting the aliens. He's super strong and invulnerable. The only thing that interrupts his fight is the fact that the volcano has an earthquake. Superman quickly flies away as maybe magma shoots out of one of the cliff sides, and he says, "Predators and aliens here on Earth in a volcano. They'll all be dead soon." Well, yeah, 'cause you're flying away. You could have saved some of them if you cared so much. Just remember that Superman clearly in this panel could be helping these aliens. They're just getting shaken around and there's magma shooting, but Superman is flying away, and he knows that the volcano is about to erupt. Just keep that in mind for later. Superman says to no one apparently, "The greatest threats to the safety of the human race destroyed by the Earth itself. Problem solved. Except a scream? A human scream!" Yeah, remember? You let Lois tag along. What did you think was going to happen to her? But it's really not a big deal, because Superman just flies to the source of the scream. Some predators were carrying her. Some aliens were maybe about to attack, but Superman separates them with heat vision and knocks out the predator that was carrying Lois. Oh, now all of a sudden you care about Lois? Clark, thank heaven, this is the worst vacation ever. What did you expect? I know, I'm sorry. I had just begun to feel sorry for these creeps. Language. Lois points out that the Predators aren't actually attacking Superman and says, I think they want you to follow. I guess. Superman and Lois follow the Predators. Lois says, they butchered Jose and Chaco. I figured they were keeping me for dinner. What are they, Clark? Death, Lois, but hopefully not for the Batman. Oh, now all of a sudden you care about Batman? The Predators head back to where they live, and Batman is waiting there for them. He says, they didn't realize Lois was your female. They apologize, and that's saying a lot for these characters. But they don't want to insult a sun spirit. Yeah, for some reason the Predators have instantly decided that Superman is a sun spirit. I don't know how they knew about his connection to the sun. That is where Superman gets his powers, and of course, we know that the Predators like warm climates, so there's almost a connection there, but I don't know why they think of him as a sun spirit. Just go with it. Batman, in the last few minutes, has figured out the Predators' history. Apparently, these Predators were on a ship that crashed here on Earth 14,000 years ago in the middle of a great ice age. And because they hate cold, they took their ship down into the volcano where it was warmer, and they decided to live down there. They also apparently brought alien eggs with them to hunt. First, that's supremely impressive that Batman learned their language and got all of that history that fast. He's the smartest man alive. Let's just put it at that. This guy figured out their entire culture in about 10 minutes. Second, 14,000 years. That's a pretty long time if you think about it. And these Predators never once, not even one of them, ever thought to explore the outside world. Never once did they not do well in a hunt and let one of these alien creatures out into civilization where they could propagate and breed and conquer whatever living thing was out there. I mean, this is just a bizarre idea to have had them there for 14,000 years just sitting quietly in a volcano. That is a really long time. Like, maybe I'll believe 5 or 10 years, but we're talking generations and generations, and none of them ever explored the world. Batman and Superman try to decide what to do next. Batman suggests, well, I suppose we could seal them in and just let the volcano take care of them. Superman says, they're living beings, Bruce. They're not particularly good for humans, so I'm not suggesting we let them continue their search, but they've got an absolute right to live. They aren't evil, just dangerous. Batman says, it was a joke, so what do you propose we do? Actually, maybe you should listen to Batman. The Predators just basically do nothing but kill. Maybe do let them die? I don't know. The only other thing I can think of is throw them into space. Oh yeah, that's pretty much exactly what they're going to do. Superman tells Batman to explain, you tell them that the deal is they will not harm another human being, and in return, I will repair their ship and return them to the stars. Batman says, good plan. Is it? Is it really? So Superman decides to fly back to the Fortress of Solitude and basically fly a massive chunk of his Fortress of Solitude to the Andes Mountains. When he gets back to the volcano within minutes, the Terrestrial Defense Initiative has launched missiles at the volcano. And Superman is really surprised, and he's just looking at them, and one of them hits the volcano. Great row! Batman called it right. The TDI is not going to tolerate any extracurricular activity in this region of the world. Point of order, Superman. Yeah, you have laser eyes, so those missiles, you could actually be shooting them down if you remembered that you have superpowers. Superman flies his technology into the volcano. Lois and Batman run up, and Batman says, what took you so long? Superman says, I may have lost a step over the years, but I brought my Fortress of Solitude from above the Arctic Circle to here in under 15 minutes. Yeah, you know what? I'm with Superman on this one. Batman, you're being a dick. Regardless, Batman and Superman begin transferring via particle beam the predators into the Fortress of Solitude, the actual Fortress of Solitude, where of course they go nuts and start just smashing shit up, including Superman's butler robot, Kelex. Let's take a close look at these predators, by the way. Look at those furs. This is a big disappointment. I think that these predators spend way too much time unmasked, and they never really have high-tech armor. They're just wearing furs or pretty much nothing. I don't know. I think part of the cool aesthetic of the predators is their armor. I think they look much better with all their armor on. I feel like that this design is kind of subpar. So all of the predators get transferred into the Fortress of Solitude. Superman says, "Good. Now, Batman, you and Lois transfer in. I'm going to try and round up what aliens I can," and Batman says, "You're kidding, right?" "No? Don't be stupid. The predators are one thing, but bringing those horrors into the fortress will be inviting catastrophe. Leave them. Just get the ship." But Superman insists. Don't save the monsters, Superman. That's just nuts. Not even Ripley would save the aliens. And Ripley at one point was impregnated by one. No, she died so that alien would die. Ripley was brought back with alien DNA in her. She was half alien. She still tried to kill every last alien. Superman's like, "Nope, they're living things." Well, if you care this much about every living thing, Superman, I mean, you should be out there making sure that nobody's killing whales or cutting the fins off of sharks. I mean, you should be making sure that people aren't slapping mosquitoes. These aliens, it's just such a stretch that Superman's like, "Nope, nope, I've got to save every last alien." These things are evil creatures that just exist to kill. That's all they do. It's just crazy. This is taking Superman's oath to an extreme, because I think the aliens are much closer to savage animals or even some sort of like a virus or something. There's no reason to save them, Superman. Oh. Inside the Fortress of Solitude, the predators have been causing all sorts of damage, and everything's in zero gravity right now. Basically, there's no effective way to fight. But Lois grabs parts of a damaged robot, and it allows her to have thrust, so she grabs Batman and flies them out of there. Maybe don't let the predators have free access to the Fortress of Solitude, Superman. Maybe you should have, put them in chains or a net at least, something. Maybe it didn't make sense to just transfer them into your home base and let them start wrecking crap. Superman finds the eggs that the aliens are hatched out of, and a facehugger jumps out, tries to attach to his chest, but of course Superman is invulnerable, and he just instantly freezes the eggs and puts them in a net that came out of nowhere. The level of difficulty that Superman encounters with these aliens is akin to you bumping into someone in the hall at work and you just can't get around each other. Are we dancing? Superman flies the alien eggs to the Predator ship and then somehow is inside. Do you guys see where the opening is on this spaceship? Because in this panel, he's got the alien eggs in a net, and then in the next panel he says, "This has got to be the storage hold." How'd that happen? Superman picks up the Predator's ship and starts to fly it away. We see in the foreground of one of these panels an alien queen. Superman puts the Predator's ship in his Fortress of Solitude, where he finds the Predators causing all sorts of trouble, but he gathers them up in like 2 seconds, and he tells Kelex, his robot, to repair himself and contact the Terrestrial Defense Initiative. Robot servant, could you please fix yourself? Thanks. Superman then leaves the Predators behind, where they're instantly killed by the alien queen, who apparently snuck aboard the ship. That's what she does. By the way, this alien queen is off-model. The alien queen has never had 6 arms, but at this point in the story, whatever. I think we could also assume that, okay, the aliens have been there 14,000 years. I don't know, the Predators genetically engineered it or something. gave it some more arms. The Predators attack Batman, but Batman just knocks them out with a special concoction that he made up. Batman and Superman have no problem fighting these monsters. There's just no stakes at all. There were some aliens in a volcano where no one lived. Batman and Superman just sort of inserted themselves into this problem. Superman calls up the Terrestrial Defense Initiative and asks them not to nuke the volcano like they're planning on. But the Terrestrial Defense Initiative insists that they're basically going to do it anyway. And then we see that Superman is actually a robot, but the TDI never learns that. Yeah, the Terrestrial Defense Initiative just doesn't trust Superman enough to, listen to his explanation that he's taking all of the aliens off planet. I mean, Superman's only saved the world, hundreds of times? It's not somebody you can trust easily. The alien queen grabs Batman and knocks out Lois Lane, and then takes him to a weird part of Superman's ship where there's apparently no gravity. It's sort of like being in the water, and she cocoons him up. Superman is meanwhile trying to hone in on Batman by tracking his heartbeat. Batman apparently writes to himself in his journal, "One of the things that made Harry Houdini one of the greatest escape artists was his ability to dislocate his joints on command. I've studied the greatest. Now it's time to see if I can do them one better." And Batman easily gets out of the cocoon and kicks the alien queen in the head. Before things get too dangerous, Superman flies in and punches the alien queen. The alien queen starts to scratch Superman, or does she? There's no blood. It's just some ripped bit of his uniform, and Superman says, "Rao." By the way, R-A-O, Rao. That's Superman's Kryptonian version of God. And he says it at least 6 times in these 2 issues. It's a bit much. Don't worry, Batman created some knockout juice for the alien queen. He tosses it to Superman, who throws it in her mouth. The end. Superman says he's surprised that the Predators aren't acting more grateful. You met them before, Superman. Lower your expectations. Well, Superman just tells his computers to duplicate Batman's knockout formula. He pumps it through the system, and he knocks all the Predators out. Easy peasy. The Terrestrial Defense Initiative launches some nuclear missiles at the spaceship, but Superman simply gets outside and pushes it a little bit faster. They get into Earth's orbit where the missiles, they can't go that far. Problem solved. The aliens are all in space. And then the Terrestrial Defense Initiative does nuke the volcano. Lois says, "I can't believe it. They actually nuked the site." Superman gives them a pass. They did what they felt they had to, given the nature of the threat. The last page gets absolutely nuts. The story is over, but Kellex the robot says, "During my diagnosis of the ship, I discovered a fail-safe mechanism. Had the TDI succeeded in destroying the colony, an atomic chain reaction of possibly global significance would have been activated, and an ancient distress signal would have been released to space." That's right, if the Predator ship had been destroyed, it would have sent a distress signal for more Predators to attack Earth. Now, these are pretty big stakes. Maybe not something you want to mention on the last page after the problem is solved. What if they had started the story with that as the threat? All of Earth in danger from that kind of a threat? Now all of a sudden it matters if Batman and Superman save these monsters. Oh my God, what a crazy decision to put that on the last page. And Lois closes things out saying, "Batman and Superman arguing superhero ethics after tossing 2 species of aliens into space with a clandestine nuclear strike in the background. This has got to be the best news story I'll never write." What are you talking about? You'll never write it. Superman is an alien. Earth knows about aliens. You could write about this. You went to Peru to cover this story. You figured out what was going on. Write the story. This comic is just nothing but characters making bizarre decisions. I cannot fathom where it comes from. Batman and Superman, they never seem to have any trouble facing either the Predators or aliens. That's not a problem at all. This comic blows my mind. You know what? let's take a look at what I think would happen if Superman was exposed to some of that alien acidic blood. So, would I recommend this comic? Not really. I mean, the art is kind of interesting, but that's about it. Now, if you want to see Batman or Superman go up against these creatures, there are good versions of these comics. I would pretty much recommend any of the comics where they go up against aliens. I think that all of those, both of Superman's and both of Batman's, are decent reads. They're okay. There's two of each. Batman vs. Predator, the first one's pretty good. I don't know that I would necessarily bother with the second or the third. Diminishing returns very quickly. But I think that the only stories that are that interesting are really the first few Alien vs. Predator stories, because it's a little closer tonally to what you got out of the movies. So I think that those kind of work. It was just much more modest expectations at the time, and it pays off. You know, it's just a fun, cool story. I think that when you mix in the superheroes, you have to get rid of the horror, and you have to get rid of some of the extreme violence. So it just never really pays off in a satisfying way. That's my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, until next week, keep reading comics.